Hello and welcome to another episode of Diamond Tips. I'm Kanipoo and today we're going to talk about how to avoid early wards when you're jungling. When lower elo players ask for advice on how to carry as a jungler, they usually get an answer like gank a lot and snowball your lanes, but the question that is never really answered is how you gank. With this video, I want to address that question by giving you some tips on how to sneak by early game wards and pull off ganks that are completely unexpected. Before we get into avoiding wards, I want to start with some general tips for jungling and go over what you should be doing in the first 2 to 3 minutes of the game. First, buy your items quickly. In lower elo games, I constantly see players waiting up to 30 seconds to buy their items and end up losing early buffs because of it. Not only is it good to protect your buffs, but it's important to know if the enemy wards your wraiths or banana brush early on. Remember that all parts of the game are equally as important. That means champion select, the first 30 seconds of the game, and the rest of the game all the way up to destroying the nexus. So don't let your teams down by not participating in one of them. Second, as soon as you see everyone get to lane, open up the scoreboard and look at your enemy's items. Jungle is a role based almost purely around game knowledge and map awareness, and without a coordinated team to constantly feed you information, you have to have eyes all over the map to know where to gank. If you see the top laner with a Fortitude Elixir and 4 health potions, you have to know that they warded already. If you see a mid laner with a Crystalline Flask and 3 health potions, you have to know that they haven't bought a ward. As you're finishing your second buff, take a look at the scoreboard again and use your knowledge to decide which lane to gank. Third, always try to keep your eyes on the minimap while jungling. If you see someone walk out of the lane momentarily, open up the scoreboard and see if they have a ward. If they do, check in when they come back into vision. If they're missing a ward, then you know that they warded that side. Because we know that wards last 3 minutes, it's very easy to time the ward in chat and come back when the enemy is least expecting it. Now that we've gone over some general jungling tips, let's learn how to use these concepts to avoid early wards. To start, let's bring up the 2 most common jungling paths. The first path looks something like this. Start wraiths, do a smiteless red, and then go to blue and use smite there. This will get you level 3 and takes anywhere from about 2.5 minutes to 3 minutes to complete, depending on your leash and champion. The second path is pretty similar. Start wolves, do a smiteless blue, then go to red immediately and use smite there. This path takes the same amount of time and will also get you level 3. The only real difference here is where you end up after you've hit level 3. For the first example, let's stick with this jungle path. Now, to know how to avoid early wards, it makes sense to know where common ward areas are, so let's plot those down on our map as well. There's typically a ward by Baron, a ward in the banana brush, a ward by wraiths, a ward by dragon, and a ward in bottom tri-brush. Keep in mind that banana brush probably won't be warded early game unless the mid laner started with 2 wards, as that's typically the jungler's job. Your first job here is pretty simple. Avoid the wraith ward by taking a few extra seconds to walk around the long way like so. This will keep the enemy completely blind as to what you're doing and will make all the lanes play more passively just because they haven't seen you on the minimap. After finishing your red, you have a few gank paths. These gank paths are only available to you if you have an escape, a ward hop, or a skill shot gap closer, and if the enemy bot lane hasn't warded dragon by 3 minutes. This is pretty common because most people feel safe having both exits of your jungle warded. By jumping over the dragon wall, you avoid exiting your jungle in predictable fashion, which allows you to gank mid unexpectedly through this path, or bottom through this path. On the right side of your screen are typical junglers capable of this, and on the left side of your screen are visual examples. To be clear, this option is available to you on purple side as well. Let's clear the map and set up something more appropriate for purple side junglers. Here's the same jungle path mirrored, and here are common ward areas for blue side. Again, avoid the wraith ward by pathing a long way around, and then jump over the Baron wall to gank mid, or gank top. Keep in mind that because Amumu and Elise have to use their skill shot gap closers to get over the wall, they can't perform this strategy on purple side, and Lee Sin has to start with the Hunter's Machete, 2 health potions, and a ward. If you start at blue, these are realistically the only sneaky ganking paths available to you, so advise that if you're playing a champion that isn't able to make it over the dragon or Baron wall, it's best to start at red buff. A lot of people find it weird that I typically start red on champions like Nautilus or Fiddle, but the fact of the matter is that any champion in the game is capable of starting red buff. What buff you start at simply determines your ganking path afterwards, so try to keep that in mind while jungling. That being said, let's clear our map and label our new jungle path. You'll start at wraiths, kill red with no smite, and then do blue buff with your smite. Let's plot down all the common wards again and see what we can do to avoid them. If the enemy wards your wraiths pre 2 minutes, you'll be spotted doing them, but that's alright. After killing red, move on to blue buff normally. After killing blue, you have a few options. Let's assume for this example that the mid laner only started with 1 ward and chose to use it on wraiths instead of the banana brush. Banana brush is typically warded by the jungler, so it makes sense that it won't be warded early on. Now you have the option of ganking mid through this path, or taking the more risky route of walking through the enemy jungle and ganking top through this path. Similar to the previous example, this works on purple side as well. Let's clear the map once more and label our jungle order and plot the common ward areas. Like before, you can choose to gank mid through this path, or you can gank bottom by walking through the enemy jungle like so. The paths I've shown you so far are the ones that I most commonly take and find to be the most successful based on where players typically ward. However, it's really important to remember the tips at the beginning of the video. Your jungle path and ganking routes will constantly change from game to game based on what the enemy is doing, so be sure to check the scoreboard often to see which lanes have wards. And for you laners out there, help the jungler out by pinging wards and timing them for us. Also, just because your enemies have a lot of wards doesn't mean they aren't gankable. Lane ganks can be incredibly effective as well, and that's something I'll be covering in a future video. That'll do it for this episode of Diamond Tips. If this video helped, make sure to leave me a comment and tell your friends about it. I'm still learning how to make these videos the best I can, so feel free to leave me some criticism in the comments as well as ideas for other videos. Until next time.